Wikipedia is a free source of information where you could find anatomical details for just about any topics. Thanks to Wikipedia, information that weren't easily accessible in the past could now be found on there. However, throughout your search for knowledge on the site, troubling or distressing informations are not off limits. These 5 Wikipedia pages that we're about to show you have very disturbing backstories to it. Number 5. Soap made from human corpse. In the early 20th century, there were rumors that the Germans were producing soap from human corpse. However, the rumors were dismissed and were claimed to be false. Nearly 25 to 30 years later, during World War II, the rumors began to circulate again, and it was believed that soap was being produced in mass quantities from the bodies of the victims from the Nazi concentration camps. It was stated that the Germans were suffering from a shortage of fat during the war, and so the production of soap was halted by the government. The rumors started when the initials RIF were printed on the soaps, which stood for Reichsjudenfett, meaning State Jewish Fat. Despite dismissing the disturbing rumor, it came to light at the Nuremberg trial. A lab assistant from the Danzig Anatomic Institute testified that the soap had been made from corpse fat at the camp, and that more than 70 kilograms of fat were collected from 40 bodies to produce a small amount of soap. Number 4. Radium Girls. In 1902, the subject of radioactivity was new to researchers. Nobody knew too much about it, so its properties and dangers were not well investigated. Radium is an element that has a slight blue-green glow to it and contains a natural warmth to it. When the element was first discovered, it seemed like a fascinating material and were used as a recipe at one point and was given to soldiers to read their wristwatch without knowing the danger of it. US Radium Corporation were producing these watches filled with radium, and women would be the main workers in the factory. These women would use the glowing paint to paint the lines on the wristwatch and were advised to use their lips and tongue to keep the tips on the paintbrush sharp and clean. 20 years later, Grace Fryer became a bank teller. She experienced symptoms such as fallen teeth and swollen jaw. When the doctor x-rayed her entire body, it was discovered that her bones were decaying at a very fast rate. The disturbing part is that the company employing these women were well aware of the effects but never came to light about it. Instead, when allegations were made against the company, they dismissed it by saying that the women were spreading a severe case of syphilis. Number 3. The Silent Twins. June and Jennifer Gibbons were twins who were classified as troubled teenagers. The two were pretty much inseparable, and they would only speak to each other and no one else. This odd behavior led people into thinking that they were mutes. Although they were reserved to themselves and in extremity, they were gifted writers. They wrote a number of novels, but none of their novels were published. During their teenage years, they became heavy alcoholics and drug addicts. In 1981, they tried to burn down a tractor store. Few weeks after that, they were caught vandalizing a property and attempted to burn down a technical college. The very disturbing part about their story is that the twins believed that if either of them wanted to live a normal life, then one must die. And they made a pact that if one dies, then the other one would have to speak and interact like everybody else. Jennifer would eventually be the one to agree to be sacrificed for the goodness of her sister. The sisters were beginning the rehabilitation back into the real world and were transferred to the clinic known as Caswell. That day, Jennifer complained of a headache. She was transported to the hospital where she was pronounced dead from a sudden inflammation of the heart. Her death was very mysterious, as an autopsy was performed and no traces of poison or anything harmful was found in her body. Ever since her death, her sister June leads a normal life, and she stated, "I'm free at last, liberated, and at last, Jennifer has given up her life for me." Number 2. Euthanasia Coaster. This roller coaster is like no other. Because of the great distance and speed of this roller coaster, it is meant to cause cerebral hypoxia, which means that the brain is completely deprived of oxygen. This prototype was created by a Lithuanian engineer with the main purpose of killing passengers aboard in the most human way possible. If this roller coaster was to ever be created, it would make a person experience things such as euphoria to thrill, tunnel vision, and then loss of consciousness. He stated that not only guilty criminals sentenced to death could deserve this treatment, but also the sick, elderly, disabled, or even depressed people who request an early death could also be given an admission to the right of death. It's disturbing to think that this prototype might become a reality in the future. Number 1. Unit 731. When thinking about World War II, the first thing that comes to mind are the atrocities committed by Hitler. Shiro Ishii was the man behind Unit 731, which was a secret biological and chemical warfare research unit from the Japanese army. Citizens were lured into the death trap. Amongst those people were kids and pregnant women. The experimentation rooms had prisoners that were chained and had rotten limbs with bits of bones protruding through skin. Doctors used several methods of spreading diseases. They would spray food, drinks, gas chambers, and would also put an infected person with the healthy prisoners just for the sake of seeing how easily the disease spread. Experiments included vivisection without anesthesia, germ warfare experimentation, grenade testing, starvation, burns, having horse urine injected into the prisoners' kidneys, and much more. The inhumane experiments continued from 1937 until the war ended in 1945. More than 3,000 people died from inside the experiments and an estimated 10,000s of people from the field of experiments. Unit 731 had developed enough bacterium to annihilate the whole world.